Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing, and before there was nothing, there were monsters. That line, Ron Perlman saying that line, not shouting it, not performing it, not giving you the big theatrical villain delivery you've been trained to expect, just saying it quietly, almost gently, with the specific quality of someone relaying a fact, something they know, something they were there for. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. And then the screen fills with a pile of grotesque, shrieking creatures compounded together in some endless void, and then Sweet Pea blinks back into himself, and the King of Ooh and his friend Toronto are standing there covered in soot, and then the universe is big and old and terrible in a way that Adventure Time had been building toward for 6 seasons. That's the Lich. That's the thing Adventure Time put inside a candy-coloured cartoon about a boy and his magic dog, an entity older than existence, a force of extinction that has been cycling through the universe since before the concept of nothing had anything to contrast itself against, a being described in the show's pitch bible as something that is not a wacky villain, but something evil and terrifying. Those are Pendleton Ward's own words in the show's original pitch bible, written before a single episode had aired. Not wacky, not funny, not the next Ice King, but darker. Something that, when it looks at you, you understand on a cellular level that there is nothing to negotiate with, nothing to appeal to, no plan you could make that it hasn't already factored in, because it isn't trying to win, it's trying to end everything, and it has been trying since the dinosaurs. I have been wanting to do this video for a long time. The Lich is the character in Adventure Time that I think gets the least credit for what it actually is. Simon Petrikov gets the emotional analysis, Marceline gets the trauma breakdowns, Princess Bubblegum gets the ethics dissertations, the Lich gets called scary, and then people kind of move on. But when you sit down and trace the Lich's story from its actual beginning, not from mortal folly, not from when Ron Perlman first opens his mouth, but from before there was anything, from the first Catalyst Comet, from 65 million years before the Mushroom War, what you find is one of the most carefully constructed pieces of villain mythology in animation history. A character whose every appearance across the full run of the show deepens and expands what he is, what he represents, and what it means that a show aimed at children had the audacity to make the central antagonist not just death, but the idea of death as something that was here before life and will be hereafter, something that is patient because it has to be, something that doesn't need to rush because there is nowhere anything is going that it hasn't already been. So tonight we're going through all of it. The pre-existence, the comet, the dinosaurs, the Mushroom War, the Amber Prison, Mortal Folly, Billy's death, the Well of Power, Prismo's Time Room, the Citadel, Sweet Pea, Gold Stars, Whispers, the finale, and what the Lich actually is when you stand back and look at the complete picture. Every appearance, every piece of mythology, every layer the show added over 8 seasons and several specials, the complete history, the whole thing. And look, if you're watching this late at night, which I suspect is exactly when most of you are watching, get comfortable. Seriously, get comfortable, because this is going to take a while, and the story of the Lich starts approximately 65 million years ago, and we're going to do it justice. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It helps more than you know, and lets us keep making these for you. Adventure Time premiered on Cartoon Network on April 5th, 2010, and the Lich was present from before the beginning. Not as a character the audience had met. His first actual appearance is in the Season 2 finale, Mortal Folly, which aired on May 2nd, 2011. But he was there in the architecture of the show from day one, waiting in the mythology. Pendleton Ward included him in the original series pitch bible with that explicit instruction: not a wacky villain, something evil and terrifying. And the show held that for almost 2 full seasons before it deployed him. That restraint is worth thinking about. Adventure Time's first season has 26 episodes. Its second season has 26 more. 52 episodes of the show existed before the Lich said a single word. In those 52 episodes, he was referenced, hinted at, glimpsed. His hero, in the first season, mentions that the legendary hero Billy once defeated the Lich, and there's a visual of this incredible warrior kicking the Lich's face in, but he was kept at a careful distance. The audience understood there was a big bad somewhere in the mythology of this world. They understood it was serious. They understood, from how Billy talks about it and how awed Finn and Jake are by the concept of the greatest hero who ever lived, having defeated the greatest evil who ever lived, that when the Lich finally arrived, it would be different from the Ice King, different from any threat they'd encountered. Not different in scale, but different in kind. The show did this with Simon Petrikov too, and it did it the same way. by training you to understand what you were about to encounter before you encountered it. By the time the tapes played, you knew enough about the Ice King to understand why the tapes meant what they meant. By the time the Lich walks out of the amber in mortal folly, you know enough about what he is, from Billy's legend, from the show's own gravity when his name is mentioned, to understand that everything just changed. But here's the thing I want to do, that most Lich analysis doesn't do. I want to start at the actual beginning. Not at mortal folly. At the beginning. Before there was time. Before there was anything. There was nothing. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. The Lich says this in Gold Stars, which is the 29th episode of the 6th season of Adventure Time, aired January 29th, 2015, written and storyboarded by Seo Kim and Somvile Xylophone. It holds an 8.0 on IMDb, and it's delivered as a throwaway, the Lich surfacing briefly inside Sweet Pea to terrify some bullies and then retreating, just a flash of what's underneath, a reminder that the ancient horror is still in there. But the information in that monologue is not throwaway, it's cosmological. It's the show locating the Lich in a timeline that predates the universe itself. The Adventure Time. Wiki confirms this reading explicitly. The Lich implies he is older than existence itself, a survivor of a time before there was nothing. He's not describing himself as ancient in the way that a 1,000-year-old vampire is ancient, or even in the way that a 65-million-year-old cosmic being is ancient. He's describing himself as existing before existence, before the framework that makes existence possible was established. He was there then. He is, in whatever sense that statement can be true, something that predates time. And the show doesn't over-explain this. It doesn't give you a mythology class about the pre-universe. It gives you Perlman saying that line quietly, then the image of monsters in a void, and then Sweet Pea blinking back to himself. The implication does the work. What you're meant to understand is, this is not a character whose threat comes from power, though he has enormous power. His threat comes from what he represents. He is not winning if he destroys all life. He is fulfilling his function. He is what he is. And what he is has been true longer than the universe has been true. The Lich wiki page describes him as the last scholar of Golb. The episode Whispers, which is the 19th episode of the 8th season, aired February 14th, 2017, has the Lich's severed hand referring to him by this title. Golb is the Chaos God who appears in the Adventure Time finale, the entity whose breath, the show strongly implies, gave birth to both the green Catalyst Comet that destroyed the dinosaurs and the mushroom bomb that created the Lich's physical form a million years later. Golb and the Lich are related in a way the show never makes fully explicit, but keeps insisting on. The Lich is the last scholar of Golb, a devoted servant, a being who dedicated his entire existence to earning the favor of the Chaos God by doing what the Chaos God represents, which is the dissolution of order, the extinction of all life, the undoing of every arrangement that existence has managed to make for itself. This is the Lich's theology, if theology is the right word for it. He is not evil the way that most villains in children's television are evil. He's not evil because of trauma, or because of ambition, or because he was hurt and became this. He is evil the way that entropy is evil, the way that nuclear winter is evil. Not from malice, from nature. He is what he is. He does what he does. And he has been doing it, in one form or another, since before the concept of nothing. Now let me tell you about the dinosaurs. Evergreen is the 22nd episode of the 6th season of Adventure Time. It aired on Cartoon Network on January 15th, 2015. It was written and storyboarded by Tom Herpich and Steve Wolfhard, from a story by Herpich. The episode was watched by 1.75 million viewers. Oliver Sava at the AV Club gave it a very positive review, specifically praising its story, guest voices, and colour palette. It holds an 8.9 on IMDb, and it's set approximately 65 million years before the events of the main series, during the Cretaceous period, at the moment when the green Catalyst Comet, the first physical form of what will eventually be the Lich, is approaching Earth. Urgence Evergreen is an ice elemental. He's a wizard of considerable power who lives and works in the prehistoric world of intelligent dinosaurs that exists before humans, before the Mushroom War, before anything we recognize as the world of Adventure Time. He's one of 4 elemental guardians: ice, fire, candy, slime, who are the mystical custodians of the world's fundamental forces. And he has called a meeting with his fellow elementals because he has detected something incoming. A comet. Green, with horn-shaped flames on either side, moving toward Earth with a purpose that Evergreen describes as aching for extinction. The other elementals don't take it seriously. This is the thing that drives Evergreen, who is not a particularly sympathetic character. The show is clear about this. He's brilliant and well-intentioned, and also a complete jerk, to take extreme measures. He freezes his fellow elementals when they refuse to cooperate. He sends his young dinosaur apprentice, Gunther, a mutated theropod who is more of a slave than an assistant, treated with barely disguised contempt despite obvious devotion, on a dangerous mission to obtain magical rubies. And he builds a crown. The crown. The crown that millions of years later will be found by an old dock worker in Scandinavia and sold to a young antiquarian named Simon Petrikov for a sum that wasn't worth it. The crown that will make a good man lose his mind. The crown that will create the Ice King. The Adventure Time. Wiki confirms the connection explicitly. The Evergreen episode establishes the crown's prehistoric origins approximately 65 million years ago, linking it directly to the wish-granting artifact that will define Simon's tragic arc. The crown Evergreen builds to save the world is the crown that destroys Simon Petrikov. Evergreen builds the crown to grant its wearer's deepest wish. His deepest wish is to destroy the comet. He is an ice elemental, and his relationship to ice and cold is such that he believes his wish, expressed through the crown's power, will be strong enough to stop a piece of the pre-universe destroyer of worlds from completing its trajectory. He has thought about this. He believes it will work. And then, in the final moments before he can put the crown on, a lava monster that he previously wronged bursts into the room and incapacitates him. He is trapped. The comet is here, and his only option is to tell Gunther, his abused, neglected, love-starved apprentice, to put on the crown and wish for the world to be saved. You already know what happens. Gunther's deepest wish is to be like Evergreen, not to save the world, not to stop the comet, to be like his master. It's the wish of a child who idolizes someone who has never deserved that idolization, expressed with complete sincerity in the worst possible moment. The crown grants the wish. Gunther begins transforming into a miniature version of Evergreen. White hair, long nose, ice magic firing from his hands, shouting, "Gunther, no," in a loop, because that's what Evergreen does. That's the master he sees when he closes his eyes. He becomes what he worships. And the comet strikes. The episode ends with a flash forward to the Ice King, in present-day waking up from a nightmare in which he was a dinosaur named Gunther and the world was ending. He falls off the bed. He makes explosion noises, representing the comet hitting Earth and the extinction of the dinosaurs. He tells his penguins about his strange dream. He has no idea what he just witnessed. He has no idea that the crown on his own head, the crown that has eaten his mind, began in that moment with Gunther's love for a man who didn't deserve it. And in the night sky outside his window, twinkling, a comet. The next one in the cycle. There's so much in Evergreen that rewards careful attention. The connection between Gunther and the Ice King is not just the crown, it's the psychology of the wish. Gunther wished to be like Evergreen, and the crown made him into a version of Evergreen, but without anything underneath, just the surface behaviors, the ice magic, and the shouting. Simon wished, when he put the crown on, for Betty to love him again. The crown didn't grant that wish, but the crown's magic kept him alive and changed him in the direction of those desires. He spends 1,000 years looking for a princess who will love him, because that's the wish that was running underneath everything when the crown first activated. The crown doesn't grant wishes cleanly. It warps the wearer toward their deepest desire in ways that destroy the person in the process of serving the desire. But the deeper connection in Evergreen is the one between the crown and the Lich. Evergreen's plan was to use wish magic to stop the comet that was the Lich. The crown, created specifically to counter the Lich's first arrival, failed. The Lich hit the Earth and caused the KT extinction, the catastrophe that killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, that in our universe we attribute to natural causes, that in Adventure Time's universe was the first mass extinction performed by an ancient cosmic evil who was fulfilling its function. And the crown, the failed weapon against the Lich's first form, survived the impact and would eventually find its way into the hands of Simon Petrikov. Think about what this means. The crown and the Lich are cosmologically linked. The crown was created to stop the Lich. It failed. The Lich won. And then millions of years later, when the Lich's essence returned to Earth through the mushroom bomb, the crown's own failure was still echoing, because the crown had spent millions of years doing what it does, passing from host to host, finding people whose deepest wishes it could warp. The crown and the Lich are mirror images. Both are forces that take people and transform them into something they didn't choose to be. The Lich through possession and the magic of the bomb. The crown through wish magic that serves a specific desire by consuming the person who has it. They came from the same cosmic moment. They were the impact and the weapon that failed to stop the impact, and millions of years later, both of them were still operating in the world of Ooh. I've been thinking about the Evergreen episode ever since I started putting this video together, and here's the thing that I keep landing on. The show was doing something very deliberate with the timeline of the Lich's existence. It wasn't enough to say the Lich is ancient. The show needed to show you how ancient, needed to take you back to the dinosaurs 65 million years ago and show you the comet with the green horns arriving at Earth, and let you understand that the thing Finn and Jake have been fighting is the same thing that ended the dinosaurs. That the Mushroom War was not the Lich's first attempt. The Cretaceous extinction was the Lich's first attempt. And it worked. Everything ended. Eventually the world started over and produced new life. And that new life developed intelligence and built civilization. And then that civilization destroyed itself in the Mushroom War, and the Lich was born again from the ruins and tried again. He's been doing this for 65 million years. He hit the Earth once, and it worked, and he came back and did it again, and it almost worked, and he'll do it again, until it does work. That's the Lich. Not a villain with a plan. A force of extinction on a very long schedule. Now the Mushroom War. The show is deliberately vague about when exactly the Mushroom War happened. The Adventure Time Wiki's timeline section notes that it was sometime in the 20th century, probably between the late 1980s and the early 2000s, based on the technology visible in post-war ruins, the Cheers theme Simon Knows, and the presence of a Generation 3 iMac computer in the episode The Lich. What is not vague is what the war ended with. The detonation of a mutagenic bomb. Not a regular nuclear bomb. A bomb specifically designed. The show strongly implies this was intentional, that whoever deployed it understood what they were releasing, to weaponize the essence of the Lich, the same substance that was the green Catalyst Comet, the same force that killed the dinosaurs. The mushroom bomb was the Lich bomb. Its detonation was the mechanism by which the Lich's consciousness, held in the bomb's mutagenic waste, found a physical vessel, a person who had been submerged in that waste. That person was consumed. The Lich wore them. And from that moment, the Lich was in the world, physically present, walking through the ruins of human civilization with his army of the dead, pursuing the extinction of all life on the planet he had just helped destroy. The Adventure Time. Wiki's description is precise. The Lich came into physical being near the end of the Mushroom War, following the detonation of a mutagenic bomb, where he possessed a person who had been submerged in mutagenic waste. The Lich's current body, the skeletal, robed, green-flamed creature that Ron Perlman voices, is not his original form. He doesn't have an original form in the conventional sense. He's a consciousness that takes bodies. The comet was a body. The possessed human was a body. The body he wears for most of the show is a person who no longer exists inside it. This is the piece of the Lich's origin that the show never makes melodramatic, but that sits underneath everything. There was a person. Before the Lich, there was a person caught in the wrong place when a mutagenic bomb detonated. That person was absorbed, consumed, replaced. The Lich, in his most recognizable form, is wearing the remains of someone who had no say in the matter. The TV Tropes character page for the Lich acknowledges this directly, noting that whoever that got exposed to the bomb was an unfortunate victim caught in the crossfire and forcefully turned into a vessel. The Lich's human form is not the Lich. It's the Lich's current housing. And that particular piece of information, that there was a person, that the person is gone, is part of what makes the Lich more disturbing than a conventional undead villain. He's not a zombie who remembers being alive and mourns it. He's something that replaced a person completely, that wears a human form as a strategic choice, that doesn't retain anything of who that person was. Billy defeated him. At some point between the Mushroom War and the main events of Adventure Time, the legendary hero Billy, giant, seemingly indestructible, the greatest hero Ooh has ever known, confronted the Lich. The episode His Hero, which is the 21st episode of the first season, aired December 6, 2010, depicts this in a brief visual during a song. Billy kicking the Lich's face into a tower, the amber forming around him, the Lich imprisoned inside the great tree at the heart of what will become the Candy Kingdom. Billy had a magical gauntlet. The gauntlet was enough, apparently, to force the Lich into containment, but not to destroy him. Billy couldn't destroy the Lich. Nobody has ever been able to destroy the Lich in any permanent sense. You can contain him. You can redirect him. You can transform his physical form. But the consciousness, the essence, the thing that existed before there was nothing, that doesn't get destroyed. It finds another body. It keeps going. The amber prison. The Lich spent an indeterminate number of years trapped in amber inside Princess Bubblegum's candy tree. This is the situation at the start of the show. He's been there, presumably, since Billy imprisoned him, which, if the Mushroom War was approximately 1,000 years before the show's present, could be anywhere from a handful of years to nearly that full millennium. He was casting spells the whole time. Princess Bubblegum knew this. She tells Finn and Jake in Mortal Folly that the Lich had been casting spells in his attempts to escape. He was working on it in the amber. Whatever passes for his consciousness in that state, he was using it to push outward, to reach through the containment, to find a crack. The crack he found was the waving snail. Here's the single best piece of Adventure Time production mythology that I know: the snail. The snail was a background joke Pendleton Ward included in every single episode of the show. A tiny waving snail hidden somewhere in the frame of each episode, an Easter egg for attentive viewers who could pause and find it. It was Ward's version of Alfred Hitchcock's cameo appearances, a hidden game he was playing with his audience in every episode. The snail in every episode of Adventure Time. And then in Mortal Folly, the snail has glowing green eyes. The Lich has been controlling the snail that has appeared in every single episode, that fans have been cheerfully hunting through paused frames for 2 seasons, was the Lich's advance agent. The show's most beloved background gag was the Lich's escape vehicle. Adam Muto, in a retrospective interview cited in multiple fan analyses, noted that once the decision was made to use the snail as the Lich's escape mechanism, the writers became aware that this would retroactively colour every previous snail appearance. Every cheerful waving snail in every episode of Season 1 and 2 now had the Lich's influence somewhere in it. The waving snail that fans found and celebrated was the Lich waving at them. He was always there. He was in the background of the first season, the whole time, waiting. Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil are the 24th and 25th episodes of Adventure Time's second season. They aired on Cartoon Network on May 2nd, 2011, together as they were designed to be aired on the same day. They were supposed to be the Season 2 finale, and due to a studio scheduling error, ended up as the penultimate episodes instead, with Heat Signature airing after them. Pendleton Ward has stated on record that he considers them to be the Season 2 finale, regardless of scheduling. They were written and storyboarded by Adam Muto and Rebecca Sugar, Mortal Folly, and Jesse Moynihan and Cole Sanchez, Mortal Recoil, from a story by Mark Banker, Kent Osborne, Patrick McHale, and Pendleton Ward. The guest star in both was Ron Perlman as the Lich. Both episodes were watched by 1.92 million people. Mortal Folly holds an 8.9 on IMDb. Mortal Recoil holds an 8.8. The Wikipedia article on these episodes quotes Ward saying that with the Lich's introduction, he wanted to show how heavy the back history of Ooh is, and that the Lich was the vehicle for that. The Lich is what Ooh's history actually weighs. He's the accumulated mass of all the civilizations that have ended, all the extinctions that have happened, the living embodiment of what happens to everything eventually. Here's how Mortal Folly opens. Princess Bubblegum has been having visions. She's been meditating with Finn and Jake, and while they daydream about their girlfriend and their self-image respectively, she sees something darker. She sees the Lich. And the show does something very specific with this setup. It makes PB's premonition a self-fulfilling prophecy. She has the vision. The vision disturbs her enough that she brings Finn and Jake to check on the Lich's prison. When she brings them there, the snail, in Finn's backpack the whole time, the Lich's eyes glowing underneath its cheerful exterior, reaches through the amber and frees the Lich. If PB hadn't come to check on him, he wouldn't have had a body within range to use. Her attempt to be cautious caused the disaster she was being cautious about. The Adventure Time. Wiki notes this explicitly. The Lich would not have been released if PB hadn't come to check on him because of the vision. Her vision of the threat became the mechanism by which the threat was realized. The Lich walks out of the amber. And this is the moment. This is the 11-minute episode that Matt Fowler at IGN called a real, grotesque villain inserted into the merely semi-dark world of Adventure Time. Everything up to this point in Adventure Time has been adventure and comedy and emotional depth, and the Ice King being tiresome. And now there's this. A skeletal figure in a robe, walking slowly, and the world going wrong wherever it passes through. The atmosphere shifts when the Lich is on screen. The color palette changes. The music changes. The show has been reserving a specific register of darkness for this character, and it deploys it with confidence. The Lich's first words to Finn. He finds Finn near the Well of Power, a lake of mutagenic waste, residue from the mushroom bomb, green and glowing, and he uses his hypnotic voice. He doesn't attack, he speaks. Walk into the well, Finn. Aren't you cold, Finn? Walk into the well. The Adventure Time. Reviewed blog describes this as perfectly calibrated. Aren't you cold, Finn? Is the most menacing thing the Lich could have said, not because it's frightening on its own, but because of how utterly calm it is. He's not trying to scare Finn into compliance. He's trying to talk him in, like you'd talk someone off a ledge, but in reverse, like you'd comfort a child. Aren't you cold? Is the voice of something that has a fundamental understanding of what living things want. Warmth, comfort, safety, and is using that understanding to lure a child toward his own destruction. That's the Lich's intelligence, not tactical genius, psychological precision. Finn doesn't walk into the well. The sweater saves him. This is the production detail that reveals something important about how the show was thinking about the Lich versus the heroes. PB's sweater was originally, according to the Come Along With Me retrospective on the Avocado, supposed to be magically protective, able to shoot lasers, a proper magical defense. Rebecca Sugar championed the idea of making it just a normal sweater, a yellow sweater that PB knitted because she cared about Finn. No magic, just wool and affection. And that's what defeats the Lich's hypnosis, at least in this round. Not power, not a weapon, something someone made for him because they loved him. The Lich's hypnosis breaks on the warmth of a normal object made with care. This is one of the thematic lines the show draws about the Lich that becomes more important as the seasons progress. He can't comprehend love. He can comprehend fear. He can comprehend self-preservation. He can comprehend the desire for warmth and safety, and use these as levers. But the actual emotional reality of caring for someone else, the kind of caring that makes you knit a sweater, is outside his framework. It doesn't factor into his model of how living beings work. And so it blindsides him. Every time. The fight that follows is one of the most kinetic and genuinely frightening action sequences the show had produced up to that point. The Lich is not stopped by Billy's gauntlet. The legendary weapon that once defeated him is crushed effortlessly, the gauntlet crumpling like paper, and the Adventure Time reviewed blog points out that the gauntlet was sentient, it blinked, and the Lich crushed it without a thought. The thing that defeated him before is nothing to him now. He's at the Well of Power. He's been replenishing himself on the radiation and mutagenic waste. He walks through Finn and Jake the way you'd walk through fog. The Lich's speech to Finn in this episode is, and I've rewatched it probably a dozen times preparing for this video, one of the single finest pieces of villain dialogue in animation history. And Ron Perlman delivers it. This is the moment that defined the Lich as something completely outside what kids' television had done before. Everything goes dark. The show pulls away from the candy-coloured adventure it's been building. And Perlman says, quietly and clearly, "You are alone, child. There is only darkness for you, and only death for your people. These ancients are just the beginning. I will command a great and terrible army, and we will sail to 1 billion worlds. We will sail until every light has been extinguished. You are strong, child, but I am beyond strength. I am the end, and I have come for you, Finn. I am the end. Not I will end you, not I will destroy everything. I am the end. He's not threatening Finn with something that will happen. He's telling Finn what he is. He's the end that's already been decided. He's the destination. And the words, sail to 1 billion worlds, the scale of that. Not Oo, not the land of Oo, and maybe a few other dimensions. 1 billion worlds, every light extinguished. The show is telling you that what's in front of Finn isn't a villain with a plan for this planet. It's something that would, if it could, end everything that has managed to exist anywhere. Pendleton Ward's instruction in the Pitch Bible, not a wacky villain, something evil and terrifying. This is what that instruction produced. This speech. Ron Perlman's voice in that darkness. The Lich's body is destroyed at the end of Mortal Folly. Finn pulls PB's sweater over the Lich's skull with what amounts to the show's best physical comedy beat, in the middle of its most intense action sequence. And the skull comes apart, and the Lich collapses into dust. And then the Lich isn't destroyed. He never gets destroyed. His spirit descends into PB after the Ice King accidentally drops her into the Well of Power. Mortal recoil is the Lich wearing PB, her body contorting, her voice going wrong, the show explicitly calling up The Exorcist as a reference point, PB's possessed body acting like Linda Blair, and Finn and Jake and the Ice King having to fight this version of him. The Lich is stopped, sort of, by the Ice King freezing possessed PB, and then the frozen statue falls over and shatters, and the Candy Kingdom has to reassemble PB from the pieces, and she doesn't have enough candy to reconstruct herself fully, so she comes back as a 13-year-old. And in the background of the final shot, the snail is waving, the snail the Lich used to escape, still there. And its eyes glow green as it waves goodbye to the camera. The Lich was not stopped. He was displaced. He will be back. There's a detail about the production of the Mortal two-parter that I think explains a lot about how the Lich was used over the next several seasons. This was originally supposed to be the series finale. Before Adventure Time was renewed for a 3rd season, the crew thought these episodes might be the end of the show. The Wikipedia article on Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil confirms this explicitly. This was originally going to be the series finale before it was picked up for a 3rd season. So everything in Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil was designed to be the culmination of Adventure Time's story. The Lich as final boss. The Lich as the thing the whole show had been building toward. And the show kept going. And now the Lich had to be maintained as the ultimate threat, while the show also kept building its world and its characters and its mythology. The writers had to keep him enormous, and keep him rare, and keep him terrifying, while also doing 6 more seasons of everything else. The way they solved this is elegant. They used him sparingly, and they expanded his mythology every time he appeared, so that each appearance retroactively made every previous appearance bigger. Each time the Lich shows up after Mortal Folly, the audience knows more about what he is, and that knowledge makes him more frightening, rather than less. Most villains become less scary the more you see of them. The Lich becomes more scary the more you learn about him. Because what you keep learning is, he's older than this, he's bigger than this, and he was never trying to kill Finn. He was always trying to kill everything. The Lich's next major episode is The Lich, which is the 26th and final episode of the 4th season of Adventure Time. Aired March 11th, 2013. written and storyboarded by Tom Herpich and Skylar Page. It holds a 9.4 on IMDb, and it's the episode that introduces Prismo and the Time Room and the concept of the multiverse, all in service of the Lich's plan. Because here's the thing about the Lich that the show makes clear across its appearances. He has a plan. Not just kill everything. He has a specific methodology. He takes a host body when he needs one. He manipulates rather than attacks when manipulation is more efficient. He plays long games. He waited in the amber casting spells. He used the snail for what must have been years of preparation. He manipulated Billy, the one hero capable of stopping him, by wearing Billy's body, which the show reveals in this episode. Billy has been dead for some time, the Lich wearing him like a costume, to steer Finn toward a specific outcome. The Enchiridion. The book that, when all its kingdom medals are inserted, can open a portal to the multiverse. The Lich has been engineering Finn toward breaking the Enchiridion, not because Finn would do it willingly, but because Finn is a hero, and heroes are predictable. They see a test, and they take it. They see a good deed, and they do it. And the Lich, wearing Billy, tells Finn that the Enchiridion is the key to saving all the kidnapped princesses, and Finn, being Finn, does exactly what a hero would do. He collects the medals. He breaks the book. He opens the portal. The Lich was wearing the person Finn considered the greatest hero who ever lived, and using that trust to make Finn the instrument of the Lich's plan. This is the coldest, most methodical thing the Lich does in the entire series. Not the possession of PB, which was reactive. He needed a new host and took one. Not the speech in the dark, which was performative. This is the Lich playing Finn like an instrument, knowing exactly who Finn is and using exactly who Finn is against him. The TV tropes page for the Lich notes this, with the heading, "Evil cannot comprehend good, subverted." His attempt to tempt Finn with something selfish, like immortality or anything you want, fails, and he breaks the Enchiridion, which is exactly what he wants, and was actually playing on his heroic nature to break it. He didn't try to corrupt Finn. He used Finn's incorruptibility as the mechanism. And then Finn and Jake follow the Lich to Prismo's Time Room, which is the one place in all of existence that is outside time, where Prismo the Wishmaster lives, and where a wish made correctly can remake reality. And the Lich wishes for the extinction of all life. Prismo grants it. Mostly. The way the Lich constructs his wish is the extinction of all life. And Prismo grants it. And everything dies except Finn and Jake, because they're there in the room when the wish lands. And then Finn makes a counter-wish, wishing that the Lich never existed. And this creates the farm world, an alternate timeline where the mushroom bomb was stopped by Simon Petrikov and never detonated, and therefore the Lich was never born. And Jake makes a third wish, sending him and Finn home, which technically overrides the Lich's original wish, though the farm world continues to exist as a branching timeline. The farm world is important for what it says about the Lich's connection to the Mushroom War, but what I want to focus on right now is the wish itself. The extinction of all life. That's what the Lich wishes for when he has access to the most powerful wish-granting device in existence. Not power, not his own immortality or invulnerability, not dominion, extinction. The wish he makes when he can make any wish is the wish for everything to end. Because that's not his means. That's his end. He doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to survive everything else. He wants everything to not exist. He wants the universe to return to the state it was in before life complicated it. And Prismo, who is outside time, who can see every timeline, who exists in the one location that is genuinely beyond consequence, grants it. because within the rules of the time room, the wish is valid. Think about the scale of what the show just did. It showed you the Lich's wish coming true, showed you all life extinct, the universe empty, Finn and Jake standing in a dead world. For a moment, in the time room, in the new timeline, for the running time of several episodes, the Lich won. The thing he has been working towards since before the dinosaurs, since before the universe, he achieved. And then it got undone by a counter-wish and a technicality. He doesn't stop. He never stops. Even undone, even redirected into the farm world's alternate consequences, the Lich's essence keeps going. The farm world Lich arises from Jake after Jake falls into the mushroom bomb's detonation. The farm world Lich uses his version of the Enchiridion to create a portal to the multiverse. The Lich exists in every dimension. The Adventure Time wiki notes, after the farm world hand falls into the portal to all universes. There is a Lich everywhere, in every dimension, in every timeline, waiting. This is what sail to a billion worlds means. Not metaphorically, literally. The Lich exists in a version of every universe. He's always already there. The Citadel. Escape from the Citadel is the second episode of the 6th season of Adventure Time, aired April 21st, 2014, written and storyboarded by Tom Herpich and Steve Wolfhard. It holds a 9.1 on IMDb. This is the episode that transforms the Lich's physical form for the final time in the main series, and it does so through one of the most genuinely unexpected moves the show ever made. The Lich has been following Finn to the Citadel, a cosmic prison for the multiverse's most dangerous beings, because Finn's biological father, Martin Mertens, is imprisoned there, and Finn used the Enchiridion to open a portal to reach him. The Citadel's prison structure is maintained by guardian entities whose blood has regenerative properties. The blood heals the Citadel itself. And when Finn, in a moment of desperate grief and rage at his father's indifference, uses his grass sword to try to stop Martin, the sword grabs a guardian, and the guardian's regenerative blood gets everywhere. It gets on the Lich. The Lich, who has been wearing Billy's decaying body and is in the process of fighting Finn, is hit by regenerative blood. And his body, which exists as a kind of anti-life, a physical form sustained by negation and rot, begins to regenerate. Not back to Billy, into something new, something that doesn't know what it is. The rot reverses, the skull fills in, flesh and features appear. And where the Lich was standing, there is now a giant baby, blinking in confusion. This is the Lich becoming Sweet Pea, and it is one of the most audacious creative decisions Adventure Time ever made. The greatest villain in the show's history, an ancient cosmic force of extinction that has been operating since before the dinosaurs, is turned into a harmless, enormous baby by accident. The reaction in the fan community was immediate and loud. The Adventure Time reviewed blog captures it well. I absolutely wanted to dislike this character, but I think it is physically impossible to do such a thing when you see how innocent and lovable he is. Sweet Pea is given to Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. He is named Sweet Pig Trunks. He has no memory of being the Lich. He has nightmares. He is enormous and gentle and slightly confused about the world. But here's the thing. The show was doing with this, the thing that gold stars and whispers pay off. The Lich is still in there. The essence, the consciousness, the thing that existed before there was nothing. It didn't go anywhere. It's inside Sweet Pea dormant, waiting. And when Sweet Pea is threatened and frightened enough, It surfaces. Just briefly. Just enough. Gold Stars, aired January 29th, 2015. The King of Ooh and Toronto are threatening to burn down Sweet Pea's orchard unless he comes with them to perform as their dancing act forever. Sweet Pea gets upset, and the episode does the transition that I described at the beginning of this video. The torch flame reflects green in Sweet Pea's eye, the world goes dark, and the Lich surfaces. "Stop," Perlman says, in that quiet, careful voice. "I have learned much from you. Thank you, my teachers. And now for your education. Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. Here's your gold star." That's the Lich's full presence in Gold Stars. One speech. 30 seconds. And then Sweet Pea blinks back to himself, and the King of Ooh and Toronto are running away covered in soot, and Sweet Pea is standing there looking at his hands saying, "Just a dream." He attributes what happened to a dream. He doesn't understand what's inside him. He's a child. He knows he has bad dreams. He doesn't know his bad dreams are the memory of being the end of the universe. The monologue the Lich delivers in Gold Stars is cosmologically dense in a way that rewards attention. Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. This is the Lich's version of cosmological history. Before existence, nothing. Before nothing, monsters. The Lich is one of those monsters. Not from nothing. Prior to nothing. Prior to the framework that makes nothing meaningful. He's describing his own prehistory and doing it in the voice of someone who finds this entirely normal and unremarkable. Of course, there were monsters before the nothing. He's one of them. This is where he came from. This is what he is. And then, Whispers, Season 8, Episode 19, aired February 14th, 2017. The Farmworld Lich's severed hand has been loose in the world, acting independently, and it finds Sweet Pea. The hand's goal is to push the Lich's essence inside Sweet Pea out into the open, to re-establish dominance, to use Sweet Pea's body as a new vessel. And the episode becomes a test of whether Sweet Pea, innocent, gentle, enormous, deeply confused by his own nightmares, has an identity strong enough to reject his previous one. The scene where the Farmworld hand whispers to Sweet Pea, when Ron Perlman's voice starts bleeding through Sweet Pea's voice again, is genuinely unsettling in a way that very few Adventure Time scenes achieve. The Whispers episode title is a reference to this. The Lich's influence on Sweet Pea has always come through in whispers, in the nightmare images, in the things that surface when he's threatened. And here, the whisper is becoming a voice again, the hand trying to give it purchase. Sweet Pea rejects it. He destroys the Farmworld hand. He doesn't become the Lich. He takes the Lich's darkness into himself and defeats it. And the Adventure Time wiki notes that after this episode, Sweet Pea seems to have fully overcome his influence. The Lich is still dormant in there. The spirit of the original Lich always will be. But Sweet Pea has established himself as his own being, separate from and stronger than what he was made from. This is the show making one of its most interesting statements about the Lich. The character who embodies the certainty of extinction, who has been the end that's always been decided, is defeated in his most intimate conflict, not by a hero's power, but by a child choosing who he wants to be. Sweet Pea doesn't overcome the Lich by being stronger. He overcomes it by being more himself, by having enough of an identity, however new, however incomplete, however formed from the strange circumstances of his creation, to say, "This is not me. I know what I am, and it's not this." Let me talk about what the Lich means at the level of allegory, because I think this is the piece that makes the Lich's mythology cohere, and I don't want to skip it. The TV Tropes character page notes that the Lich's origin, his use of plutonium, his walking wasteland status, his affinity for sickly glowing green colours, his long half-life, and his goal of total annihilation make him seem like the personification of nuclear war. And that's right. The Lich is nuclear destruction given consciousness. The mushroom bomb that created him is a nuclear weapon. The well of power that feeds him is a pool of radioactive waste. The green flames, the green colour throughout the show's depiction of him, the toxic atmosphere that surrounds him, the slow death that his breath brings to anything living nearby. This is nuclear fallout. This is what nuclear war looks like if it had a face and a voice. And the Mushroom War, the apocalypse that created the land of Oo, that unmade civilization and remade the world as this strange, magical, candy-coloured place, was, the show implies, caused at least in part by the Lich. The bomb was his mechanism. The war might have been his doing. Adventure Time is a show set in the aftermath of nuclear war, and its main villain is nuclear war given consciousness, purpose, and ancient intelligence. The Lich is what the show's world was built on top of. Every piece of the land of Oo, every mutated creature, every candy person made from mutagenic waste, every strange new life form that emerged from the bomb's fallout, exists because the Lich detonated his bomb. The vibrant, impossible world of Adventure Time was created by the thing that wanted to destroy everything. Oo is the Lich's failed attempt. And the Lich, if he could process anything beyond his drive toward extinction, would find this outcome intolerable. I want to say something about Ron Perlman's performance across the full run of his appearances as the Lich, because it's one of the single most effective voice acting performances in animation, and it doesn't get talked about enough in those terms. Perlman has played villains before. He has one of the most recognizable voices in character acting, the specific, deep, measured quality that made him perfect for roles like Hellboy and Clay Morrow and Slade in Teen Titans. But the Lich requires something specific from him that's different from his other villain work. It requires restraint. The Lich is not theatrical. He doesn't perform evil. He states facts. Everything Perlman does as the Lich is pitched at the register of someone relaying information they consider self-evident. I am the end. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. You are alone, child. These are not speeches designed to terrify. They're statements from a perspective that finds Finn's existence and resistance and hope mildly interesting at most, and ultimately irrelevant. The Adventure Time reviewed blog, analysing the Whispers episode, notes that the Lich isn't scary or intimidating in this episode, compared to earlier appearances, and I think this is right. By the time the Lich is surfacing inside Sweet Pea and whispering at him, some of the initial horror has been diffused by familiarity. This is almost unavoidable across a long-running series. But the Lich's best moments are still some of the most genuinely unsettling things the show ever produced, and they work because of Perlman's specific restraint. He never oversells it. He never reaches for the menace. He just says the words, and the words are enough. The 6th season, 2-part finale of Adventure Time is Hot Diggity Doom and the Comet. Episodes 42 and 43 of the season aired June 1st, 2015. And the Comet is the episode that resolves the Lich's arc, at least for the main series, in the most unexpected way possible. Finn and Jake and Orgalorg converge with the purple Catalyst Comet, the current comet in the recurring cycle, and the comet speaks. It's a purple entity, ancient and communicative, a voice of cosmic perspective, and it explains to Finn what the comets are, what they've always been, agents of change, The universe sending a force of transformation to a specific point in history when transformation is necessary. Sometimes the change is creative, sometimes it's destructive. The green comet, the Lich's comet, brought extinction and cleared the way for new life. Finn's comet, the blue one, brought the first human, brought life itself, in some versions of the mythology. Change in either direction. And the purple comet asks Finn a question. It offers him a choice. Stay in this world, with all its weight and impermanence and inevitable loss, or become pure energy and experience everything. Leave the physical behind and become something else entirely. And Finn chooses to stay. He chooses the world. The specific, particular, imperfect world where he is Finn the human, not a cosmic energy consciousness. And the comet accepts this and continues on. The Lich is present in this episode through the context the purple comet establishes. When the comet says, "I have embodied all that is good and all that is evil," and the show cuts from Finn to the Lich as visual confirmation of which is which. It's locating both of them in the same cosmic framework. Finn and the Lich are counterparts. The comets embody both extremes of what the universe can produce. One embodies creation and possibility, and the specific value of a single life choosing to stay in the world. One embodies extinction and the erasure of everything that has managed to exist. They're not opposites in the sense of equals fighting. They're the two poles of what change can mean. This is also why Finn is the one who consistently defeats the Lich. Not because Finn is the strongest or the most powerful. It's because they are cosmologically counterbalanced. The embodiment of good, of specific, personal, human, impermanent good, is the natural counter to the embodiment of extinction. They are each other's specific problem. And this is why the Lich's most sophisticated plan, using Finn's heroic nature to break the Enchiridion, is also his most characteristic move. He can't fight Finn directly without losing, in the long run. So he uses Finn against himself. He takes the thing that makes Finn Finn and turns it into a mechanism for his own goals. For a while, it works. Now, the finale. Come along with me. September 3rd, 2018. The Lich's presence in the finale is primarily through Sweet Pea, who appears in the opening sequence as a now fully grown and enormous adult, the show's timeline having jumped forward to show a future where he's become what he became and is a landmark of the post-war landscape. The Lich's consciousness is still dormant in Sweet Pea, the wiki confirms. It's still there. But Sweet Pea is Sweet Pea. He overcame it. He exists independently of it. The show's finale deals with Golb as the ultimate threat, the chaos god whose connection to the Lich is fundamental, and resolves it through music and harmony and love. These are the things the Lich, as a force of discord and extinction, is by nature most vulnerable to. You don't fight the embodiment of the end of everything with more power. You fight it with the things it can't understand and can't model. People choosing to connect with each other, choosing to make something together, choosing, as Finn chose at the Comet, to stay in the world and be part of it, rather than dissolve into something infinite and impersonal. The Adventure Time. Reviewed Blog says it well in its analysis of Sweet Pea's arc. I think it's kind of fitting, considering Adventure Time's main theme of change, that the ultimate evil within the world of Ooh becomes the ultimate source of goodness and innocence. The Lich becomes Sweet Pea. The thing that was the end of everything becomes a child learning to be good. Not because the Lich is redeemed. The Lich has no capacity for redemption. That's not what it is. But because the regenerative blood turned it into something new, something that retained none of the Lich's consciousness, except as a suppressed echo. And the something new chose differently. Sweet pea is the most unexpected possible answer to what you do with a force of extinction that can't be destroyed. You transform the body it's occupying into something that has its own will and its own love and its own identity. And you let that identity be strong enough to contain and ultimately reject what's inside it. The Lich, after Whispers, is dormant. The series finale doesn't bring him back. Golb is the final cosmic threat, the chaos god from whom the Lich derived his power and his purpose, and the finale resolves Golb. The Lich, still in Sweet Pea, still the last scholar of Golb, is in the finale's frame narrative as the enormous Sweet Pea that Shermie and Beth ride at the beginning of the episode in the future timeline. The Lich's vessel has become a landscape, a living mountain for future adventurers to climb. The force of extinction as terrain for exploration. The end as background for beginning. That's what the show does with the Lich in its final frame. It puts him in the landscape. Still there. Still the most ancient, most dangerous thing in the universe. And also, a gentle giant named Sweet Pea, so large he's become part of the geography, carrying future adventures on his back. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. And one of those monsters, reduced to a dormant echo inside a body that rejected it, is now a mountain. I've been sitting with the Lich's story for the entirety of this video, and here's what I want to say about what this character actually is at the deepest level of what Adventure Time was doing with it. The Lich is the show's honest acknowledgement of what is true about the universe. Not metaphorically. Actually, the universe is going to end. Everything in it will stop. Every light will be extinguished eventually, not by a being with a goal, but by thermodynamics and entropy and the simple passage of time. The stars will go out. The matter will disperse. Whatever meaning anything managed to make will be unmade. This is not a pessimistic reading. It's just physics. And Adventure Time, in creating the Lich, gave that fact a face and a voice and a set of green flames, and let Ron Perlman say, "I am the end," in the most matter-of-fact voice possible. And then it put a 12-year-old boy against it, and let the 12-year-old boy win. Not by being stronger, not by having more power, but by having a friend and a family and a yellow sweater and a choice to stay in the world and keep being part of it. By having something to protect that is specific and immediate and beloved and small. By being, in the face of the end, someone who loves something enough to keep going. That's the thematic heart of Adventure Time, and the Lich is what makes it visible. What? If there were no Lich, if there were no force of ultimate extinction, no cosmic embodiment of the fact that everything ends, then Finn's choice to stay in the world and fight for it would mean less. The Lich is what makes Finn's choice mean something. He's the weight that gives the choice its gravity. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. And after the monsters, improbably, against every reasonable expectation, there were people. People who chose to be here and stay here and make things and love each other and keep the lights on as long as they could. And that, the show says, is enough. That is worth doing. Even knowing the Lich is out there. Even knowing the lights will go out eventually. Keep them on as long as you can. Sail to 1 billion worlds if you have to, but sail toward life, not away from it. The Lich has been trying since before the dinosaurs. He's still there, dormant in Sweet Pea, patient in the way that entropy is patient, because it has nowhere to be. He'll wait. He'll always wait. He is the end, and the end will always come, eventually. But tonight, in the land of Ooh, the candy people are eating candy, and BMO is playing a video game, and Marceline is playing her bass, and somewhere Sweet Pea is sleeping a dreamless sleep and not being the Lich. Not tonight. Not yet. That's enough. That's everything. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. The Lich deserved this treatment, and I hope you feel like we gave it to him. If you haven't subscribed, it really does help us keep making these. It means more than I can properly say. The next video will be here whenever you're ready. Get some rest. And if you can't sleep, well, before there was nothing, there were monsters. But before the monsters, presumably, there was a very nice quiet. So maybe just aim for that. Good night. Expansion block. Deepen the Ron Perlman and Pitch Bible section. Let me tell you something about how Ron Perlman ended up as the voice of the Lich, because this is one of those casting stories that sounds like it could only happen this way. Perlman is known for playing heavy, physical roles. Hellboy, Clay Morrow in Sons of Anarchy, Clarence in Drive, characters whose menace comes partly from the physical reality of his face and body. He's a character actor who uses the specific texture of his appearance as part of his performance toolkit. Voice acting strips all of that away. You have just the voice. And Perlman's voice, as it turns out, is where most of the power was all along. The specific quality Perlman brings to the Lich is one that is genuinely hard to manufacture. Authority without effort. He doesn't sound like he's trying to be scary. He sounds like he's describing things that are true. I am the end is not a threat in Perlman's delivery. It's a correction, like he's gently fixing a misapprehension you had about the nature of reality. You thought the end was something that might happen. He's clarifying. No, the end is a thing that is, and it has a face, and it's looking at you right now, and there isn't a version of this conversation where the end loses. He doesn't need to perform menace, because he doesn't experience the interaction as a contest. Pendleton Ward has spoken in various interviews about what he wanted from the Lich's vocal performance, and the consistent thread is not theatrical, not the big villain voice, something more considered than that. Something that understood that the most frightening thing isn't someone who wants to hurt you. It's something that doesn't care about you at all. That finds your existence and your fear and your attempts at heroism entirely beside the point. The Lich's attitude toward Finn across all of their confrontations is not hostility. It's something closer to patient acknowledgement. You're here. You're fighting. That's fine. None of it matters. Perlman understood this and delivered it with absolute precision. His Lich voice doesn't rise when Finn resists. It doesn't respond to resistance with anger. It just continues. The same tone, the same pace, the same quality. Like water. Like time. Like something that doesn't have a clock because it doesn't need one. The production notes for Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil that have circulated through fan analysis, drawing from DVD commentary and convention panel comments from Ward, Muto, Sugar, and Moynihan, establish something important about the specific challenge of writing the Lich. The challenge was making a character who existed on a different scale from the world of the show without making him feel disconnected from it. The Ice King is a villain who lives in the same world as Finn and Jake, who is subject to the same petty frustrations and comedic indignities as everyone else in Ooh. The Lich can't be that. He can't be comic relief for even a second. The moment the Lich becomes funny, even unintentionally funny, the thing the show has built around him collapses. The not a wacky villain instruction in the Pitch Bible wasn't just a preference. It was structural. If the Lich becomes wacky, Finn's choice to keep fighting becomes less meaningful. The end needs to look like the end. And they did it. For most of the show's run, they maintained it. The Adventure Time reviewed blog which covers every episode of the series in exhaustive detail, notes that the Lich is used sparingly enough that his appearances always carry weight. There's no episode where the Lich shows up, and the result is, "Oh, it's the Lich again, this is fine." Even in Gold Stars, which that same reviewer calls somewhat uneven, the 30-second Lich monologue is cited as the episode's single finest moment, because it's been long enough since the last appearance that the audience has partially relaxed. And then the torch flame turns green in Sweet Pea's eye, and Perlman says, "Stop," and everything in you goes quiet. Expansion block. Deepen the farm world section. The farm world deserves more time than I gave it, because the farm world is where the Lich's mythology gets its most explicit alternate history dimension, and it tells you something crucial about what the Lich actually is in the context of Adventure Time's world. Finn the human and Jake the dog are the first and second episodes of Adventure Time's 5th season. They aired on November 12, 2012, and they follow the consequences of Finn's wish, the counter-wish to the Lich's extinction wish, that created a timeline where the mushroom bomb was stopped. In the farm world, Simon Petrikov used the Ice Crown's power to freeze the mushroom bomb before it detonated, dying in the process. Simon becomes a frozen corpse. The crown remains near his body. The bomb doesn't go off. The Lich isn't born. And the world is different. The farm world is the show's answer to the question, what does the world look like without the Lich? And the answer is interesting. The farm world is recognizably Earth, but without the millennium of magical mutation that followed the Mushroom War. Without the Lich, the world didn't get to be Ooh. It's grimmer in certain ways, post-apocalyptic in the way of Mad Max rather than Adventure Time. Human survivors living in hard conditions. Magic is different and rarer. The entire weird, beautiful ecology of Ooh doesn't exist. The candy people don't exist. Marceline, who is 1,000 years old in regular continuity, is an old woman in the farm world, because the century of her early life under Simon's protection passed differently. Everything is changed by the absence of the thing that the Lich made. This is the show acknowledging something strange. The Lich is part of why Ooh is Ooh. His bomb created the mutagenic waste that generated all the new life forms, all the candy people and slime creatures and everything else. His detonation is what made the post-apocalyptic world magical, rather than just ruined. The land of Ooh as a place, as the specific, vibrant, colourful, impossible world where Finn and Jake have their adventures, exists because of the Lich, not despite him. Because of him. The farm world, without the Lich, is just a ruined Earth. Now this isn't a moral about the Lich being good or beneficial. He wanted extinction and got ecological transformation instead. The Ooh he accidentally created is the thing he's been trying to undo ever since. Every time the Lich looks at Marceline or Princess Bubblegum or Finn or any of the creatures of Ooh, he's looking at the accidental byproduct of his own failure. The world he wants to destroy is the world his own weapon built. That's not irony in the conventional sense. The Lich doesn't feel irony, doesn't experience the situation as cosmic comeuppance. But the show is aware of it. The show lets you see it. And in the farm world, when things go wrong, when farm world Finn picks up the ice crown and sets off the bomb with his ice powers, when farm world Jake falls into the mutagenic waste and becomes a Lich vessel, you see the whole chain happen again in accelerated time. The bomb goes off. The Lich is born. The pattern repeats. Because this is what the pattern does. You can create a timeline where the bomb never went off, where Simon's sacrifice stopped it, but you cannot create a timeline where it stays stopped forever. Eventually something will restart the chain. The Lich finds a way in. He always finds a way in. Because he was there before the nothing, and he'll be there after, and the question of whether any specific timeline produces him or not is just timing. Expansion block. Deepen the Billy and the Snail section. Billy. I want to spend real time on Billy because Billy is the character whose arc around the Lich is the most tragic in the whole series, and it's a tragedy that happens almost entirely off-screen. Billy first appears in His Hero, the 20th episode of the first season, aired November 22nd, 2010. He's an enormous, legendary hero. The greatest fighter Wu has ever produced. The man who defeated the Lich. The person who is functionally Finn's hero in the same way that heroes have heroes. When Finn meets Billy, Billy has retired from adventuring. He's had enough. He's gotten old and tired, and he's come to believe that fighting monsters is less useful than helping people through kindness and everyday care. He's a pacifist now. His advice to Finn is to stop hitting things and start helping things. This arc, the legendary warrior who burns out on heroism and retreats into cynicism about whether violence solves anything, is one of the most interesting character sketches in the show's early seasons. Billy isn't wrong, exactly. He's seen too much. He's spent too long in the relentless cycle of fight and recover and fight again. And his conclusion, that the heroic violence doesn't fix anything permanently, is defensible. He defeated the Lich. The Lich came back. He trapped the Lich in amber. The Lich kept casting spells in the amber. You can win every battle and still not win the war. What we learn much later, in The Lich, the 4th season finale, is that by the time Finn encounters Billy in that episode, Billy is already dead. The Lich killed him and took his body. The conversation that Billy's body has with Finn about needing the Enchiridion, the instructions to collect the crown medals, the whole elaborate plan to steer Finn toward breaking the book and opening the portal. That's the Lich wearing Billy's face and using Billy's credibility with Finn to make Finn do what he needs done. Think about what had to happen for this to work. The Lich had to observe Billy well enough to replicate his mannerisms convincingly. Had to know enough about Billy's relationship with Finn and about Finn's hero worship to be confident the deception would hold. Had to construct a plausible cover story, the kidnapped princesses, that aligned with Finn's motivations and skill set. This is the Lich as intelligence operative, as manipulator of the kind that works through understanding and exploiting relationships, rather than through direct force. He didn't defeat Billy through power. He defeated Billy through knowledge. He understood Billy's world well enough to wear Billy's identity effectively, and the revelation that Billy is dead inside that body, that the heroic retired warrior, the first person to ever defeat the Lich, has been dead since before his return to Finn's life in this episode, is one of the show's cruelest retroactive revisions. Every moment of warmth and advice in His Hero is fine. The Lich didn't have Billy then. But the Billy who comes back to push Finn toward the Enchiridion is the Lich. The last thing that Billy the hero does in the continuity of the show is have his body used as a puppet to bring about the near extinction of all life. The Lich didn't just defeat Billy, he used Billy. He turned the man who once stopped him into the mechanism for his next attempt. That's the specific cruelty that the show is describing with the Lich. Not sadism, not a desire to humiliate, just the cold efficiency of something that understands that a hero's legacy can be as useful as a living hero when deployed correctly. Billy's reputation was a resource. The Lich used it. Expansion block. Deepen the thematic analysis. I want to talk about something that I think is the most sophisticated piece of the Lich's conceptual construction. And it's the thing that makes him different from any other villain in children's television, in a way that I find genuinely hard to articulate, but want to try. Most villains want something. Dr. Doom wants power. Scar wants the throne. Ursula wants Ariel's voice as a step toward more power. Even Thanos, who has a more philosophically sophisticated goal, wants to fix what he perceives as a problem. There's a desire structure underlying the villainy, something the villain is trying to get, some lack they're trying to fill, some wound in them that produces the destructive behavior, as its expression. The Lich doesn't have a desire structure in this sense. He doesn't want extinction because he's been hurt by life. He doesn't want extinction as revenge or as power. He wants extinction because that is what he is. The gold star speech, "Here's your gold star." Is the Lich being darkly ironic? Yes, but the irony has a specific quality. He's not contemptuous of the King of Ooh and Toronto, the way a villain who enjoys cruelty would be contemptuous. He's patient with them, the way you'd be patient with something small and temporary that doesn't know what it is. He gave them a lesson, not out of malice, out of something more fundamental than malice. He is what he is, and this is what he does, and the King of Ooh and Toronto encountered it, and now they know. Here's your gold star. You've learned something about the nature of reality today. This is what makes the Lich a genuinely cosmic scale antagonist, rather than just a very powerful villain. He isn't trying to beat anyone. He isn't in opposition to any specific person or value. He's the end of everything, and the end of everything doesn't have opponents. It has things that haven't ended yet. Finn is one of those things. Ooh is one of those things. They haven't ended yet. The Lich is patient because he doesn't need to rush. Everything he wants to end will end eventually. He's just trying to accelerate the timeline. And this is why the show's insistence on not giving the Lich a backstory of tragedy or trauma is correct. Some fan readings try to find a wound in him, to understand Golb's influence on him as a kind of corruption, to imagine a version of the cosmic entity that existed before Golb's breath, that might have been something else. The show allows for this reading but doesn't confirm it, and I think the ambiguity is deliberate. The question of whether the Lich was ever anything other than what he is, whether there was an entity before the end, a consciousness before the drive to extinction, is unanswerable within the show's text. And that unanswerable quality is important. Because if the Lich has a wound, if he has a backstory that explains him, then he becomes more comprehensible and therefore less frightening. The thing that makes the Lich genuinely frightening is that he doesn't need explaining. He just is what he is. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. He's one of them. That's the whole story. The Lich's relationship to Golb adds another layer. The show never fully explains what Last Scholar of Golb means. Whether the Lich was created by Golb, whether he developed his goal of extinction as a way of serving Golb, whether Golb is simply the larger force that the Lich is a fragment of. The Adventure Time. Wiki notes the ambiguity. It's implied he was created by Golby, but unlike the other mutations we see Golby make, he's not mindless, and he's also implied to be the reincarnation of a Catalyst Comet like Finn. He has an origin in Golb, and an incarnation as a comet, and a physical birth in the mushroom bomb. And none of these origin points fully explains the others. He's older than any of them. He was there before there was nothing. What the GOLB connection does clarify is the Lich's cosmological role. GOLB is chaos, the destruction of order, the dissolution of arrangement, the universe returning to its pre-form. The Lich is Golb's instrument of this dissolution in the domain of life. His specific function, his specific expression of Golb's nature, is the extinction of living things. All the order that life represents, the complexity of biology, the arrangements of civilization, the specific pattern of a single consciousness that is Finn the human. All of that is what the Lich is working against. He's the entropy of the living world. And like entropy, he's patient. And like entropy, he wins eventually. The question is whether you can keep things going long enough to matter, whether the candle can burn long enough to be meaningful before the dark comes back. That's the actual question of Adventure Time, when you strip everything else away. Not, can you defeat the Lich? The answer is yes, temporarily, repeatedly. But, can you keep the lights on long enough for what you're doing to matter? And the show's answer, delivered through Finn, choosing to stay in the world at the Comet, through BMO's singing bringing down GOLB, through Sweet Pea rejecting his inner Lich and choosing to be the person he wants to be, the answer is yes. You can. Not forever, but long enough. Long enough is enough. That's the thesis. The Lich will win eventually. The lights will go out. Before there was nothing, there were monsters. And after the nothing, presumably, there will be monsters again. But tonight, in the land of Oo, the candy people are here, and BMO is playing a video game, and Finn is asleep, and Marceline is playing bass somewhere in a cave, and the world is still going. Tonight it's still going. And that's the answer to the Lich. Not defeating him, not destroying him. Just tonight. Just keeping it going tonight. Because before the nothing, there were monsters, and the monsters don't need to rush. But tonight the lights are still on, and that matters, and it will always have mattered, even when it stops mattering. The Lich is the question. Adventure Time is the answer. Not forever. Tonight. Expansion block, the Lich and Finn, as opposites. I've been dancing around something this entire video, and I want to say it directly now because it's the key to understanding the Lich's place in Adventure Time's mythology, in a way that makes everything else cohere. Finn and the Lich are the same thing. Not similar things. Not counterparts in the way that hero and villain are counterparts. The same thing, expressed at opposite poles. The purple Catalyst Comet tells you this explicitly in the Season 6 finale. The comets embody all that is good and all that is evil, and when it says good, the show cuts to Finn, and when it says evil, the show cuts to the Lich. They are both incarnations of the same cosmic cycle. They came from the same process. They were both embodied in comets. Finn's blue, the Lich's green, and they were both sent to Earth as agents of change, the universe using the planet as its canvas for working something out. The difference is what kind of change they bring. Finn brings life, specificity, the particular value of a single consciousness choosing to be part of the world. The Lich brings extinction, the erasure of specificity, the universe's tendency toward uniformity and silence, creation and destruction, complexity and simplicity, the specific and the absolute. They aren't fighting a war in which one will eventually win permanently. They're the two poles of a cycle that the universe keeps running. Finn defeats the Lich. The Lich comes back. Finn defeats the Lich again. The Lich comes back again. This will always be true, until something else is true. And what makes Finn effective against the Lich is exactly what I said before. Not his strength, or his skill, or his magical sword, though all of those matter in the tactical sense. What makes him effective is that he is specific. He is Finn the human, 12 years old, living on Oo, loving his brother and his friends and the people of this world, making choices that are grounded in specific particular care for specific particular beings. The Lich operates on abstraction. He wants extinction, the abstract termination of all life, the general erasure. Finn operates on the particular. He wants to protect this person in this moment from this specific threat. The abstract versus the specific. The general versus the particular. And within the context of Adventure Time's universe, the particular wins. Not always, not permanently, but consistently enough to matter. There's a moment in Mortal Folly that crystallizes this perfectly. The Lich's speech, "You are alone, child," is specifically designed to attack Finn's sense of connection, to make him feel isolated, cut off, the particular consciousness floating in an indifferent universe. This is the Lich's version of the truth. You are one thing, separate from everything else, and the universe doesn't care, and you will end. And it's not entirely wrong. Finn will end. The universe doesn't care in the abstract. But the sweater that PB knitted for him, that specific warm yellow handmade thing, breaks the hypnosis. Because the sweater is evidence that the particular matters, that someone specific cared enough to make a thing for this specific person. The Lich's abstraction cannot account for that, cannot include it in its model, and so the model fails. The Lich says, "I am beyond strength," and he is. He's beyond the kind of strength that contest produces, the stronger fighter beating the weaker one, the bigger army defeating the smaller army. He's beyond that because he doesn't need to win fights. He just needs to wait. But he's not beyond the sweater. He's not beyond the specific care that made someone take the time to knit a yellow sweater for a kid they're fond of. That's the show's thesis, and the Lich is the foil that makes the thesis visible. Against a villain who is merely very strong, Finn's specific particular love doesn't mean anything special. You just need a stronger hero. Against the embodiment of extinction itself, the embodiment of abstraction and the general erasure, Finn's specific love is the only thing that works. Expansion. Block. What the Lich is made from, and the snail in every episode. I want to go back to the snail and dwell there a minute, because the snail is one of the most elegant pieces of storytelling in the whole show, and it deserves more than the brief treatment I gave it. Pendleton Ward included a waving snail in every episode of Adventure Time. This was established in the first season as a game, an Easter egg for attentive viewers, a reward for pausing and looking carefully. The snail in every episode. The internet documented it. People competed to find it in hard episodes. It was a beloved feature of the show's production, a signature of Ward's approach to making work that rewarded close attention. When you watch the seasons knowing what you're going to find out in The Lich, that the snail with the green eyes is the Lich, that the Lich has been riding the snail through every episode, that the cheerful background gag was always the presence of the end of the world, hiding in plain sight. The snail goes from funny to genuinely unnerving. Think about what this means structurally. The Lich has been in every episode, not as a major presence, not threatening or performing his monologues, just there, watching, in the background, the snail waving, the Lich watching Finn and Jake's adventures, season after season, building an understanding of them and of Ooh, learning what he needed to know, waiting for the right moment. The moment came when PB brought Finn and Jake to check on the Amber prison. The snail was in Finn's backpack, close enough to touch the amber. And the Lich, who had spent years riding the snail through the background of every episode, had been preparing for exactly this. Adam Muto's comment about the snail decision, that once they decided to use it, they became aware it would retroactively colour every previous snail appearance, is one of the most interesting production decisions the show ever made. Because what it means is that every single frame of Adventure Time in which the snail appears has always been a frame with the Lich in it. Every adventure, every comedy moment, every tender character beat, the Lich was in the frame. Watching, waiting. Not in a way that changes the events, not in a way that was influencing anything necessarily, just present. The end of everything in the background of every story the show tells. This is one of the most sophisticated pieces of retroactive mythological construction I've encountered in any narrative medium. It's not just an Easter egg that turns out to matter. It's a philosophical statement about the show's world. The Lich is always in the picture. You don't have to be able to see him for him to be there. The end of the world doesn't announce itself. It hides in the background of ordinary moments, waving, unremarked, until the moment arrives. Expansion block. The Lich's various forms and possessions. The Lich's relationship with bodies is worth examining carefully because it says something important about his nature and about how the show chooses to depict him. The first body, the unnamed person consumed by the mushroom bomb's mutagenic waste. This person is never identified, never given a backstory. They're not the Lich's origin, but his vehicle. The show treats this with appropriate gravity by not trying to make a character out of it. We get the body, skeletal, robed, the familiar visual of the Lich, but we never know who they were. The second possession, Princess Bubblegum, in mortal recoil. This possession is temporary and reactive. The Lich's body was destroyed. He needed a new vessel. PB was available because she fell into the well of power. The possession of PB is disturbing for different reasons than the Lich's usual operations. PB is not a passive vessel. She has enormous presence and intelligence, and the show has spent the entire second season building her as a character with complex motivations and genuine depth. Watching her body move and speak with the Lich's influence is disturbing precisely because the show has given you so much context for who she is. The wrongness is more specific because the character is more specific. The third possession, Billy. This one I've discussed at length, but the production decision to have the Lich wear Billy is the most disturbing because it's the most premeditated. The Billy possession isn't reactive. The Lich sought out Billy, killed him, and assumed his identity specifically because Billy had the credibility with Finn that the Lich needed. The personification of extinction, studying a legendary hero closely enough to replicate him convincingly, filing away the information, choosing the right moment. The fourth form, Sweet Pea. This is the form that lasts longest in the show's continuity. The baby turned child turned enormous adult. The Lich in his final physical form, as visible in the show, is the least Lich-like. Gentle, naive, enormous, sitting with tree trunks and Mr. Pig at a little kitchen table, worried about gold stars. The end of the world, learning to be a child. It's one of the show's strangest and most affecting images. What connects all of these forms is that the Lich, in each case, is wearing something that isn't his. The mushroom war victim, PB's body, Billy's legacy, Sweet Pea's new identity. He doesn't have a form of his own that exists independent of what he's inhabiting at any given time. He is, in a sense, purely relational, defined entirely by what he's in the process of consuming, or wearing, or pretending to be. This is different from other possessing entities in fiction, where the possession is a tactic. For the Lich, wearing bodies seems to be genuinely how he exists in the physical world. He came into physical existence by possessing someone in the mushroom bomb blast. He requires a vessel. The consciousness that predates the nothing needs somewhere to be. This is actually the most frightening piece of the Lich's construction, when you think about it long enough. He doesn't have a natural form. He doesn't exist anywhere that you could point to and say, there is the Lich, in his home, being the Lich. He exists in what he takes. He exists in the bodies of others, which means he is, in a fundamental sense, defined by what he has ended. He is the negative space left by the things he has consumed. The Lich is what's left when a person is gone from a body. That's not a metaphor. That's his literal origin and his literal mode of existence. He arrived in the physical world through the absence of a person. He has been the absence of persons ever since. Expansion block, the final scale of the Lich's ambition. We will sail to 1 billion worlds, Let me stay with this line a little longer, because I don't think its full implication gets enough attention. The Lich, in his speech to Finn in Mortal Folly, describes his plan as sailing to 1 billion worlds and extinguishing every light. Not one planet, not one dimension, 1 billion worlds. The Adventure Time wiki confirms that after the Farm World events, after the Farm World Lich's severed hand falls through the portal to all universes, there is a Lich in every universe, in every dimension, dormant or active, but present everywhere. The goal was always to reach everywhere. The billion world speech wasn't hyperbole. It was the actual scope of the project. This is the scale at which the Lich operates, and the scale at which he thinks. He's not a villain with a plan for this specific world, this specific set of characters, this specific story. He has a plan for everything that exists, everywhere, in every possible configuration of reality. And the plan is the same in every case. End it. This is what makes the show's ultimate resolution of the Lich, him becoming Sweet Pea, dormant and contained rather than destroyed, feel appropriate rather than insufficient. You can't destroy the Lich in the sense of ending his project permanently. He exists in every universe. He predates the nothing. There will always be another green comet. There will always be another mushroom bomb. The project of extinction continues at cosmic scale, whether any specific incarnation of the Lich is active or dormant. What you can do is what Sweet Pea did. Reject it. Choose not to be it. Be something else instead. In this specific place. On this specific day. Not forever. Not in all the billion worlds. But here and today. And that is what we have. The billion worlds is the context that makes Finn's choice to stay on his one world mean something. Against the scale of 1 billion worlds and every light extinguished, the choice of one person to remain specific and particular and alive in one place seems impossibly small. And also, it's everything. It's the whole answer. The Lich needs to extinguish every light. He needs every one. Finn only needs to keep one going. Just this one. Just tonight. Just Just now. Just the people who live here, and the adventures they're having, and the candy they're eating, and the music someone is playing in a cave somewhere. Before there was nothing, there were monsters, and the monsters have 1 billion worlds to get through. But they don't have this world yet. Not tonight. And that's the whole victory. That's what's worth fighting for. Expansion block. Deep dive into Mortal Folly production and the sweater. I want to go back to Mortal Folly and spend real time there because this episode, this specific 11-minute cartoon that aired in May 2011, changed what Adventure Time was, and I don't think that gets said plainly enough. The episode is described in the Avocados retrospective as one where sometimes you watch an episode of TV and you just know it has forever changed the trajectory of the show. That's the exact right framing. Mortal Folly is the episode where Adventure Time stopped being a show that had interesting mythology in the background and became a show where the mythology was the point. Before Mortal Folly, Adventure Time had serialization elements. It had continuity. It had Billy's legend and the hints of the Lich's existence and the Ice King's history being more complicated than it appeared. But you could watch it without tracking any of that. The individual episodes worked as standalone adventures. The world was rich, but the richness was optional. Texture rather than structure. After Mortal Folly, the mythology became structural. The Lich is free. Princess Bubblegum is possessed. The snail is waving with green eyes. You can't skip this. This has consequences that will run through the rest of the show. The Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil Wikipedia article quotes from a Wired magazine review that praised the episodes as a tantalizing taste of what's to come in terms of direct serialization. And the Fundamentals review notes that before this episode, Adventure Time had found its groove in the second season and was building towards something, and that these episodes are what turn up the volume and give the whole show a new direction. This is the consensus in retrospect, but I want to make it concrete by talking about what specifically changed. What changed is, the show stopped protecting its audience from consequences. Before Mortal Folly, Adventure Time ran on episodic reset. Things happened, and then mostly went back to normal. The emotional continuity was there. Finn's feelings for PB developed, the Ice King's sadness accumulated, but the physical stakes of individual episodes mostly resolved. Nobody was permanently changed. After Mortal Folly, PB is 13 years old at the end of Mortal Recoil, and she stays 13 for multiple episodes afterward. The Ice King dropped her into the Lich's well. That has consequences. Finn got to have the weird situation of his crush being now the same age as him, which the show played for both comedy and genuine awkward feeling. The world was different after the episode and the show didn't reset it. The sweater. I mentioned the production decision, Sugar championing the ordinary sweater over the magical one, but I want to go deeper on why this matters. The climax of Mortal Folly is Finn defeating the Lich by pulling PB's sweater over the Lich's skull. It's physically absurd. It looks like a scene from a comedy, not a scene from the most intense confrontation the show had produced. Finn is literally putting a knitted garment over a demigod of extinction and wiggling it until the skull collapses. The show plays this completely straight. There's no ironic wink. The logic of the scene is, the sweater works because it was made with love, and the Lich's hypnosis is designed to attack the sense of connection, and connection literally overpowers it. If the sweater had been magical, if it had been a defensive artifact with established power, then the defeat would have made sense in the conventional adventure narrative way. The hero had the right tool for the job. But the sweater being ordinary is the whole point. Finn defeats the embodiment of cosmic extinction with an ordinary piece of knitwear because someone liked him enough to make it. The love is the weapon. The specific particular care is the weapon. And this is only possible if the weapon has no magical properties, because if it has magical properties, then its power comes from somewhere else, from somewhere external, and the point about love being sufficient is lost. Sugar was right to fight for the ordinary sweater. The ordinary sweater is the thesis of the show made physical. The Rebecca Sugar connection to Mortal Folly is worth noting explicitly. She co-wrote and storyboarded the episode with Adam Muto. This is the same person who wrote I Remember You and Simon and Marcy, the Adventure Time episodes most concerned with love as a form of resistance against the worst things the world can produce. The sweater being ordinary instead of magical, the defeat of the Lich happening through an expression of specific care rather than an expression of power. This is entirely consistent with the thematic preoccupations of Sugar's Adventure Time work. She kept finding the same truth from different angles. Specific love, expressed through ordinary acts, is what holds the world together against the forces that want to end it. The Lich is the fullest expression of the force that wants to end it. And PB's sweater, ordinary, yellow, handmade, given to Finn because she liked him, is the fullest expression of what defeats it. Not permanently, not completely, just tonight, just this round. But the logic holds. Expansion block, gold stars, and the monologue in detail. Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. Here's your gold star. I want to spend time with this monologue the way I'd want to spend time with a poem. Not because it's short, though it is, but because the density of what it contains rewards the attention. The first half is cosmology. Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. This is the Lich establishing the frame of reference. He's not starting with the dinosaurs. He's not starting with the Mushroom War. He's starting before the universe, before the framework that makes before and after meaningful, before time, not just a long time ago, but prior to the concept of temporal sequence. This is the Lich locating himself within a frame of reference that predates the frame of reference most people use. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. The universe begins with nothing, the way cosmology suggests it does, the way the Big Bang model implies it does. The universe emerges from a state of nothing. But the Lich is claiming there was something before that nothing. The monsters existed in the state prior to the state that produced existence. They are more fundamental than the nothing that produced everything. They predate the precondition of existence. This is not just a scary speech. It's a claim about the structure of reality. The Lich is saying, I am more fundamental than existence. The nothing that the universe emerged from is not the earliest state of anything. Before the nothing, monsters, and I'm one of them. My nature precedes the nature of the universe itself. Now, here's your gold star. The gold star is the joke of the episode's title. The reward Sweet Pea has been promised for educational achievement, the small currency of childhood learning. The Lich has just delivered a cosmological monologue about the nature of reality predating existence to two petty con artists who were bullying a child, and he closes it with, here's your gold star. Like they've done well. Like they've learnt their lesson and earned the reward. Like this was a class, and they were students, and he was generously imparting knowledge. The humour here is pitch black and specific. The king of Ooh and Toronto are terrified. They're running away. They're screaming monster as they go. And the Lich gave them a gold star for their education. He doesn't mock them. He doesn't chase them. He doesn't follow up on the confrontation. He gave them the thing the episode's title promised, and then Sweet Pea blinked back to himself and stared at his hands and said, just a dream. This is the Lich at his most efficiently frightening. He didn't arrive to destroy anything. He arrived because Sweet Pea was being threatened, and some part of the thing inside Sweet Pea responded to that, and the response it had was to deliver a cosmological monologue and award a gold star. The scale mismatch, the universe before the nothing against petty con artists burning an orchard, is the whole joke and the whole horror at once. This is what the Lich is. This is what you're standing in front of when you stand in front of something that existed before the nothing. And the thing he offers, the gesture he makes, a gold star, the most ironic possible reward, is the Lich's version of humanity, the closest he gets to interacting with the scale of creatures that live in the world he wants to end. He gave them a gold star. The end of the universe gave two small con artists a gold star for their education, and then it went quiet. Expansion block, the Lich's nuclear metaphor in detail. The TV Tropes character page for the Lich describes him as the personification of nuclear war, and I think this reading is so important that I want to spend real time with it. Adventure Time is set in a post-nuclear world. The Mushroom War, whatever exactly it was, whatever the specific politics and conflicts that led to it, ended with nuclear detonations. The world of Ooh exists in the environmental aftermath of nuclear explosions. The mutations, the strange new life forms, the candy people made from mutagenic residue. This is what nuclear fallout produced. The land of Ooh is a nuclear landscape that has had 1,000 years to grow new things in the ash. It's beautiful and strange and alive. And underneath all of it is the radiation, the residue, the long-term consequence of a thing that was designed to destroy everything. The Lich is that thing given consciousness and purpose, and the specific aesthetic of radiation. The green color, the green flames, the glowing, the sickness that spreads from his presence, the way things die near him without him having to do anything. He's a walking irradiation. His very presence is lethal. The adventure time. Wiki describes this as a passive effect. He kills any living beings nearby just by being near them. That's not magic in the conventional sense. That's radiation. That's what proximity to a nuclear source does to living tissue. His well of power is radioactive waste. Literally. The mutagenic green liquid at the bottom of the well is what created him and what feeds him. He returns to it when he needs to replenish. His power source is the same source that created him, the nuclear residue. He absorbs radiation. He is radiation, given will and direction and purpose. The show was made by people who grew up in the Cold War's shadow and immediate aftermath. The Mushroom Wars timeline, probably sometime between the 1980s and the early 2000s, based on the cultural artifacts visible in the ruins, places it squarely in the period when nuclear anxiety was defining American public consciousness. The fear that the civilization you were living in was one political crisis, away from the kind of obliteration that the Mushroom War depicts. That was the ambient anxiety of the generation that made this show. And the Lich is the face of that anxiety. The thing that the bombs produced. The specific horror of what nuclear weapons represent, which is not just the immediate destruction, but the lingering, slow, generational damage. The thing that keeps killing long after the explosion is over. The Lich doesn't need to attack to be lethal. He just needs to be near things. That's the horror of radioactive contamination, the thing that makes it different from conventional violence. You don't know it's there until the symptoms appear. It works on scales of time that are longer than a human life. It kills in ways that look like other things for years before the connection is made. The Lich is this given a face and a voice, and Ron Perlman saying, "I am the end," in a tone of pleasant informational correction. The green colour throughout the show's depictions of the Lich, the green flames, the green eyes, the green comet, the green glow of the mushroom bomb's explosion, is radiation green. The specific visual shorthand that the 20th century developed for nuclear danger, the warning symbols, the glow-in-the-dark materials, the green that meant contaminated in the visual grammar of nuclear iconography. Adventure Time inherited this visual language and used it correctly. The Lich is green because he is the thing that green warned you about. What makes the allegory more sophisticated than a simple bad thing equals nuclear equation is the prehistory the show gives the Lich. He predates nuclear weapons by 65 million years. He was a comet that wiped out the dinosaurs long before humans existed to invent atomic bombs. The nuclear weapons aren't the source of his existence. They're just the form his latest arrival took. The mushroom bomb didn't create the Lich. It released him. The comet's essence had been dormant in the material of the Earth for millions of years, waiting for something powerful enough to release it. And humanity, building weapons large enough to end civilization, built something large enough to wake up what the dinosaur's comet had left behind. This is the show making a sophisticated point about nuclear weapons that isn't simply nuclear weapons are bad. The point is, nuclear weapons don't create new evil. They release old evil. The destructive force that a nuclear weapon taps into is not something humans invented. It's something as old as the universe. The bomb found it. The bomb gave it a new body. But the thing itself was always there, waiting in the rock and the physics and the deep history of a planet that has been hit by comets and survived them and carried their residue in its geology. The Lich is not the bomb's fault. The bomb is his latest vehicle. That's the more frightening reading. and it's the one the show endorses. Expansion block: the deep mythology of the last scholar. The last scholar of Golb. The Lich says this in whispers. It's confirmed in subsequent materials including the Adventure Time wiki and the Fiona and Cake continuation. And it's the piece of the Lich's mythology that I think has the most potential for further exploration and that raises the most interesting questions. A scholar. Not a servant, not a warrior, not a weapon. A scholar. The word choice is specific and deliberate. A scholar studies. A scholar dedicates their intellectual life to understanding something. A scholar of GOLB is someone who has spent their existence studying the nature of chaos, of the dissolution of order, of the return of everything to the void, and who has chosen to dedicate that understanding to a specific project: the extinction of all life. There's a theory in the fan community, noted in various places including the TV Tropes character page, about what this title might imply about the Lich's origin. The theory goes, what if the Lich was not always what he is? What if there was an entity before Golb's influence? A consciousness that predated the drive toward extinction, that was something else before it became the last scholar. The Adventure Time Reviewed blog speculates about this. I do wonder if this implies a more two-dimensional side of the Lich that wasn't entirely evil before absorbing the knowledge and tendencies of an ultimate evil. The show doesn't confirm this, and the Lich's own "before there was nothing" monologue suggests he's been monsters since before the universe. But the ambiguity is there. If the Lich was once something else, if the thing that became the last scholar of Golby was not always dedicated to extinction, then his mythology takes on a different register. The tragedy of something that might have been otherwise, that encountered Golb's chaos and was changed by it, that devoted itself to serving the god of entropy. This reading makes the Lich more like the crown than like a simple evil, something that was given a direction by an external force that serves a function that was assigned rather than chosen. It doesn't make him sympathetic, but it makes him more cosmologically interesting. He's the last scholar, which implies there were others. What happened to the first scholars of GOLB? Did they complete their work? Did they end up in dimensions where there's nothing left to end? Is the Lich the last one because all the others succeeded and he's still working? The Fiona and Cake continuation establishes that, in the Casper and Nova universe, in the Choose Your Own Adventure book that Simon writes, the Lich is presented as one of the elements of the broader mythological framework that Adventure Time is building. The show's continued engagement with Golb as the larger force, with the Lich as its agent, suggests that the mythology hasn't been fully explored. The Lich as last scholar implies a theology, a cosmological system in which Golb is worshipped, in which the extinction of life is a form of devotion, in which the last scholar is performing an act of reverence rather than simply destruction. He's not trying to destroy because destruction is fun. He's trying to destroy because that is how you honor Golb. That is how you complete the work. That is what scholarship looks like when the subject of your scholarship is chaos and dissolution. This is a genuinely disturbing way to frame the antagonist of a kids' show, and it's exactly right. The Lich isn't a villain who wants to rule the world. He's a devotee trying to honor his god. His actions are, from within his own framework, righteous. He is doing what the universe asks of him. He is the last scholar, doing the last work, trying to earn the last star from a teacher who doesn't give gold stars, who doesn't give anything, who is chaos itself and beyond the concept of reward. The Lich devotes himself to something that will never acknowledge him. That is the most specific kind of terrible thing, and the show barely touches it, but it's there in Last Scholar. Expansion block, the Lich and the multiverse, plus closing deepening. One of the most underexplored pieces of the Lich's mythology is what his multiverse presence actually implies. After the Farmworld events, After the farm world, Lich's severed hand fell through the portal to all universes. The Adventure Time wiki states clearly, the Lich exists in every dimension, in every universe. There is an infinite number of Liches, one for each possible version of reality, and they're all connected. They all share the same fundamental drive. They are all the same consciousness, distributed across the multiverse, each one doing the same work in their respective universe. Think about what this means for the scope of the Lich's project. We will sail to 1 billion worlds is not metaphor or hyperbole. He literally exists in 1 billion worlds already, not having sailed to them, already there, already present, already doing what he does. The question isn't whether the Lich will reach your universe. The question is whether the version of him in your universe has been activated yet, or whether he's still dormant, still waiting, still riding a snail through the background of someone else's life. Every universe has a Lich. Every universe has its version of the green comet, the mushroom bomb, the mutagenic waste, and the vessel, and the prison, and the eventual escape. Every universe is running the same cycle. The Lich didn't wish for a multiversal extinction. He didn't need to. He's already there. The structure of reality, as Adventure Time describes it, includes a Lich in every configuration. He is as fundamental to what exists as the other elements, fire and ice and candy and slime. The elementals are part of every universe, so is the Lich. He's the elemental of extinction, the fundamental force that every universe has, whether it needs it or not. And the comets cycle every 1,000 years. The green comet returns. In whatever form it takes, in whatever universe, the force of extinction arrives on schedule. This is the universe's own clock ticking. Every 1,000 years, change. Sometimes creative, sometimes destructive. The Lich is on that clock. He doesn't need to hurry because the clock is already running. He just needs to be ready when the 1,000 years is up. I've been making videos about Adventure Time for a while now, and I've talked about a lot of characters, and the Lich is the one that I find most useful as a mirror for what the show is actually doing. Every other character tells you something about specific aspects of the show's themes, love and loss and growing up, and what it costs to care for people. The Lich tells you all of those things at once, because he's the thing all of those themes are responding to. The specific love that saves people is specific precisely because the alternative is what the Lich represents. The abstract, the total, the everything ended at once. The growing up that matters, the loss that means something, the care that is worth taking. All of this has weight, because it happens against the backdrop of something that would end all of it. The Lich is the backdrop. He's the thing that gives the rest of the show its stakes. Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. And before there was nothing, there were monsters. That's where the Lich came from. And here, in the land of Oo, 1,000 years after the world ended and started over, the candy people are going about their day, and Finn is asleep in his treehouse, and the snail is somewhere in the background, waving. The Lich is patient. He's been patient since before the universe. He can wait. But tonight, in Oo, the lights are still on, and that's enough. It will always have been enough. Thanks for spending tonight with me on this one. The Lich deserved the full treatment, and I hope it felt like that. If you haven't subscribed, it really does help us keep making these. Each subscriber makes it possible to spend 4 hours going through the complete mythology of a cartoon villain who predates the concept of nothing. If that's a worthwhile use of your time, it's a worthwhile use of ours. The next video will be here when you're ready. And if you're trying to sleep and you can't, because Ron Perlman's voice is in your head saying, "Before there was nothing, there were monsters," I'm sorry about that. It's a real occupational hazard of this channel. Try the Cheers theme. It worked for Simon. It'll probably work for you. Good night.